Hello and welcome to another episode of the L&G Just Covered podcast. We talk to advisors and key stakeholders in the intermediary space. My name's Wayne.
And I'm Clodagh, and I have the pleasure of inviting Ed, founder and managing director of Cover Direct. So thank you very much for coming along today, Ed.
Thank you both. Nice to see you.
Thanks so much, Ed. Really looking forward to hearing about the company you work for. Obviously, you're MD of Cover Direct, aren't you? And how you came into the industry and really what you're all about. Tell us a bit about yourself.
What am I all about? Where to start? Well, I've been in the industry for a number of years and created Cover Direct quite a long time ago, but it's been in its current guise since about middle of 2022, which is a fully advised and advised-only service, working in all things protection. So it's personal protection, business protection, and also private medical. It's not where I started. I'm actually a chartered accountant. I started at PricewaterhouseCoopers after university and then went out into various other roles and then found myself in a digital media agency. And that's what led to the genesis of Cover Direct and me seeing through customers that we created and how they're being served by the market, by the industry, by the brokerages, and thinking, I think I can do better. Nice. And that's really what Cover Direct. So we're not trying to be the biggest or anything like that, but we are trying to be the best. We're trying to bring some of that professional services that I certainly have as my main background and bringing that to life insurance. And that's what Cover Direct does.
Brilliant. You know, isn't it funny, all the guests we've had, how they end up getting into the industry? Everybody's so different, but it's nearly like you stumble upon it, don't you? But you know, as soon as you start it, you know that's what I want to do. And this is the start of my long-term career. You do.
Well, it's a brilliant product, that's been around for ages. And I mean, I've always been deeply entrenched in finance through my career. Yeah. And actually protection is really a fundamental product to kind of financial stability, if you like, financial resilience. It's not the exciting stuff. It's not hopes and dreams and holidays and investments or stocks and shares or anything like that, but it really is the basis of financial resilience. Yeah. So I think the product has one thing to do. Also, the industry is fantastic. It's a huge industry that serves the entire UK market, potentially. But actually it's quite a close-knit industry. The insurers are great, the BDMs are great, so all of that. And also all the brokerages, all the people I meet at the various different events, they're also personable and so lovely.
It's funny, we were at an event there a couple of weeks ago and some advisors think us insurance companies, we all don't like each other and we all fight with, but we don't. It's one big family and we all try and help each other.
We do.
There's the knowledge. We all want the same thing.
It's a positive, it's a noble purpose that we've all got, haven't we, to protect more customers?
Yeah. Exactly that, yeah. And trying to create that awareness, which is one of the biggest challenges of the industry, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It is. So talking about creating awareness, how do you guys approach that then?
So we're actually a referral-based model predominantly.
Okay.
So we work with lots of different sort of introducers, if you like. That really starts in probably the quite stereotypical people that are talking to clients for a reason. Probably are sitting in that, that trusting space. So the client's looking to that advisor for some advice. So thinking about IFAs, wealth managers, thinking about mortgage brokers, finance coaches. But also the other side of that is actually it's very difficult to be a really good mortgage advisor and also a protection expert. Now, and the same with wealth planning as well. I think a lot of the big companies have their own protection department, in-house, but a lot of the smaller ones, which are dealing with an enormous amount of clients, don't have that. And so we offer that as a service. Use us if you're busy, use us if you flat out just don't like protection and not very good at it, which is hard to admit. Or use us if you're, sort of got some difficult cases. Maybe it's sort of a particularly high value case, or maybe there's lots of medical conditions, lots of underwriting considerations, or you don't have a broad enough panel. All those things are things that we help with. So that referral model works really nicely. So you're having a conversation about maybe a mortgage. You've got that regulatory requirement to bring up protection, but actually it doesn't make it a sort of a tick box or an upsell, cross-sell. What it is, look, let's focus on your mortgage because that's what you're here for. I've got to talk to you about protection for that requirement, but don't worry about it for now. I'm going to give you our partners, Cover Direct, a link. Go and find out for yourselves And if you want to do more, then you can book a call and take it from there. And actually the response is really, really good. So I often talk to our introducers as, very low to no regulatory risk, but also importantly for them, no reputational risk. We're not going to take someone's number and just dial it, which reflects bad on the introducer. So that's a lot of our business. We also do a lot of digital media. So we've got a presence on all the socials, and we do digital media like that to sort of try and bring awareness, because there are so many different ways. There are so many different, I don't like the word hook, but what captures that attention, what piques that interest? And for everyone, it's different.
Yeah. We chatted earlier about the need for referrals, that, that people want to be a specialist in their own field. But if you want to have, your clients to make sure they're confident in your ability to do the mortgage or whatever it is, then you pass it over to somebody else. So referrals are so, so important.
I mean, in terms of that, how have you cultivated those relationships? Because relationships are huge from a referral perspective, aren't they?
Well, if you think about a referral, the best referral is, going to, let's say we went to the pub and started talking about life and family and maybe sport and whatnot. And then you get on to what I've done recently. We're like, I've taken out a life insurance policy. One of you might say, why did you do that? And the other one might say, I've done that. Who did you go with? And either way, you're going to start talking about an experience. Yeah. That's a great referral, because if that person then comes into you as a business, it's a really, really strong, it's a very warm, customer ready to engage and discuss further. Trying to commercialize that is really, really difficult, trying to get sort of any sort of volume around that. And that's why we focused on, when it comes to the introducers, who are these trusted people who are having meaningful conversations with a very natural segue to protection, but can eliminate some of those sales red flags, but also hand over that referral easily without sort of, where do you default to? An email, dear so-and-so, copied as so-and-so, can you help them? And then how do you get in contact with them? So what we did is we were very cognizant of that, no obligation piece. So we create, co-branded landing pages, journeys, online journeys that are actually branded to the introducer. So you feel like you're in the right place. You go through that to actually understand what's important to you. And what I mean by that is what's going on in your life. Personally, I'm married. I'm kind of self-employed, but I'm employed. I've got 2 young children. I've got a mortgage. I've got lots going on. All of those things you'll find out in the protection journey. If you've got none of those things, it'll also say, do you want to, or why might you want to get protection? And then you get the choice to engage. So we're able to reduce that reputational risk right down, because it's only a book call, but also the chance to find out for yourself, which means you're not being harassed and that reputation again being a problem. And then also the handing over of data. How do you manage that? Well, this is the client self-opting in. You provide the link. You land on a page that you recognize the brands of, and then you complete it yourself. So you've self-opted in. So you don't have that worry about, how do I give away my data, which a lot of people are always worried about right in the beginning.
We said that. A lot of people don't
and
want
the fact is they've got the existing advisor as well, where the trust is already there, isn't it? So they know, and I suppose you've got the co-branding already, so that consistency is there all the way through.
Exactly. Yeah. Bridging that journey is really important.
Yeah, excellent. And you mentioned earlier, you wouldn't be just dialing people on that, because obviously there's a specific process. You talked about that booked scenario. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's just one of my own bugbears. I mean, I'm quite busy one minute, whether I'm holding a child or playing with a child, or eating supper, or working, or being busy, or sometimes it's a really great time to call me. Driving here today, anyone could have called me at that time, and I'd have been really engaged because I was in the car for an hour and a half. But how do you kind of guarantee that? And I just don't like that concept of being called ad hoc. You don't know who they are. You often can't get a word in for the first minute because they're really trying to sort of get you in there. And I'm quite a polite person. So I just eradicated that. I just said, right, we're a book call methodology. So when you come through our journey or you get introduced to us, you're looking to book a call. We take your email and your number. We'll remind you of that call, which are important because you've got no, sort of past with us. But then we just call you at that time. You get an invite that goes into your diary. And I think that works quite nicely. It's the sort of thing I would expect as a consumer myself. So I adopted it for us.
It's such a simple thing, but it's such an important thing. We chatted about it earlier, that everybody hates those flipping calls that come through. And after, especially when you've worked all day and spoken to people all day, the last thing you want to do some evenings is to talk, unless you know it's planned. And then you're preparing yourself for that conversation. Yeah, it's simple things.
It just is, isn't it? Something you think, oh, okay, that's obviously the way to do it. And it works probably in line with the types of customers you're getting anyway, because they've got existing relationships and that type of thing. Those advisors are probably doing it the same way as well.
Yes, I think it does work with the majority, and sometimes we get a little bit of pushback that there's not an available spot soon enough, or can you just see how you get on and try me? And we go, look, with the greatest of respect, we're quite busy. We're experts. We're advisors. We have booked up diaries. We're booking time for you. We research in advance, so all my advisors have a required 15 minutes before a call to research it, and I think that's so important because if you think about protection, you might do it once or twice in your entire lifetime, whereas these advisors have done it hundreds, thousands of times. Like they really know, they really know their stuff. And if they've got a chance to understand you in advance through our journey, they can actually build some really good, kind of stepping into your shoes and recommendations in advance. So,
and it says something that, if you can't get an appointment for 5 days, it says something about the service that you're providing, doesn't it?
Well, I try not to do that all the time. You never walk into a restaurant that's empty, but the restaurant that's full, you try and squeeze into. So
that was us last night. You want that one?
It's difficult, but I think it works. I like the whole sort of organised nature about it. Not having that sort of, you get that one customer where you've really called, and maybe it's really important for them, but they still feel slightly harassed, and that's what I don't want to have, and I don't like it myself.
But it's a better outcome for the customer, isn't it? If it's planned and then the advisor has time to prep and do the work on, there's going to be a far better customer outcome at the end of the day.
Completely agree. And actually the customer will be, kind of at peace. They'll be like, no, I'm ready. I was expecting your call. Yeah. When you say things on the phone, like, have you got a pen and paper? That I do actually. Yeah. And that's because they're prepared for it. They're not in the car or running around a supermarket or whatever, you're doing daily life. Exactly. Yeah.
L&G Apply is our new annuity application platform, designed to save you time on every application. Sign digitally and avoid rekeying client details. Tap the link in the episode description and our team will reach out to help you get started.
It just works. In terms of the journey that you've had, you said you started Cover Direct quite a long time ago, and the current guys, obviously, in the last few years. Are there any sorts of key mistakes or learns that you had along the way that's enabled you to sort of morph into the guys that you currently have?
I think I wouldn't say there's any particular mistakes. I think that it's always an evolution. One of the things that I'm quite focused on is what I call marginal gains. So, you're never going to make that big leap. But if you can try and look at the next, 10 baby steps, and you do those 10 baby steps which are achievable, suddenly you look back and you've made that leap. So I think really being open to changing and evolving, taking, building your network and listening to people, taking in their advice, but also forming your own opinions. I think those are the key things. I don't think we've made any mistake. I don't think it's as grown as quickly as maybe I thought it would, being perfectly honest. But how was I supposed to guess that in the first place? So it was really just managing my own expectations.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, you're thinking, has it grown as what I thought it was? But then how do you know how it would have grown?
Exactly.
You don't, do you? It's interesting human nature in that way, isn't it?
Exactly.
So you're making that assessment.
And the partner piece, it makes perfect sense in my mind. It's been thought through as much as I can think it through. But actually moving that along to, getting partnerships, which start with, you're kind of saying to people that are regulated businesses on the whole, you're not very good at protection, are you? And that's not something you write in an email. So you've got to have that discussion first, and they've got to get a sort of a bit of a sense of what you're about, look you in the eye a little bit, and then that moves on. Actually, once they're signed up as an introducer, that's actually the beginning of the journey, because then we've got lots of hard work to actually make sure that we're agile enough to embed within their process.
Yes.
You can't just turn to a load of advisors, planners, paraplanners, whatever it might be, and say, you've got to do this now, because they're not going to do it. And then when you look back at the relationship, they're sort of saying, well, we've spoken to X many customers, and we've spoken to an awful lot less. Why is that? And that process takes time and agility to fit within their process and make yours work with them.
And then are you always taking on new introducers, or
is it constant?
Yeah, is it a regular thing?
And I'm always on the lookout for sure. Yeah. I've normally got one or two. I have about two in the pipeline at the moment, which we're at kind of contracting stage, which then means I go in, spend time at their offices to talk to their employees, help them understand what Cover Direct's all about. Leave myself with an opportunity to learn their process to see if it'll actually fit together. The process is quite one size fits all, but it does need sort of tweaking and changing. So we make it as easy as possible. But I think there will be a saturation point. But at the moment, no, we're always looking.
I suppose then you need their commitment and their advisors and paraplanners to make sure that they're putting the processes in place that refer. And ultimately, it's for the end customer, isn't it? That to make sure that they're protected. And that's why they have to do it.
Exactly.
Definitely a big topic conversation. If you can't write it, you refer it, and that's what everybody should be doing. So.
Oh, we've said this on several of the episodes,
Yeah.
haven't we?
Yeah.
And actually talking about that, you're in various areas of protection as well, aren't you? And we were having a conversation just before, weren't we? Just about the different areas that you serve. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I talk about us as we are an advisory-based service. We specialise in all things protection. So we normally think of that as consumers being just life insurance, and that term is used for everything. But really, what does that mean? So it's life insurance, income protection, and critical illness cover, and all the different types of life insurance you get within that. We also work with businesses, looking at business protection. So how do you protect the business? And then also at group risk schemes, which are things like death in service, group income protection, and again, group kick. And then we also do the private medical stuff as well. So we do that both for personal and businesses. So it's trying to be, and is, all things protection, but nothing else. We often get do you do cyber or my car insurance? No, we don't do that.
Well, it's a common
diversion.
It's a common sort of, I suppose, misconstruing from a consumer perspective, because they don't know, and obviously we talk about using simple language, like perhaps not using the word protection, because not everyone understands, do they? It's an interesting one around sort of some of the other areas you're into, and I think some of them do cross-populate, don't they? I think like the group income protection element or group protection element we were talking about earlier, group risk, for example.
Yes, for sure. I mean, our business proposition is actually called, rather unimaginatively, Business 360. Sorry, I couldn't come up with a better name, but the reason behind it is that it's a holistic process. So we go in. I mean, companies are all very, very different. We could be talking to people with 3 or 4 employees, or people with hundreds of employees. How we go about that is what differentiates and how we deploy it. But the idea is still simple. Start with the business and what you need to protect there. That really centres around profits, debt, and stakeholders. So if something was to happen to a stakeholder, if something was to happen to a key person, profits, if something was to happen to maybe directors that debt's linked to, and creating liquidity crunches. So we'll look at that first and understand what the budget is there. We'll also ask them about what are they trying to do for their employees. And more often than not, they've got something in place. Because really those group risk schemes, as you talk about, is sort of it's basically employee benefits, and really that's a employee attraction, employee retention tool. So we can look at that as well. That's actually quite easy to do because it's number of employees and understanding earnings, getting names and dates of birth. But we take that one stage further, and we go into the business either through digital assets or what we prefer is face-to-face. And then we go and actually explain that to the employees in whatever medium we can. So it might be, group meetings or department meetings, and we go and explain very quickly, this is what your company's put in place, and this is what it means. If you want an opportunity to understand your own circumstances and how that fits in, then we give the company, again, like our introducers, a branded page, which takes them through a branded journey, which gives you an opportunity to talk about your own personal circumstances. So companies can't fix everything. No company has. We hear it all the time. People either say my company does everything, or there's nothing at all, and neither one are ever true.
No. And I think it's so important because a lot of one of the objections that advisors would have is, I've got life insurance with work on a group scheme, I'm fine. But they're not fine. And it's great then that you can come in and then have that conversations of highlighting those risks and then looking at family protection.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I particularly like the way that everything is joined up with the branding piece, and people
Apart
go
from
through
the car insurance.
It's good that happens, because often is that always thought about as much, and making sure that you've got that, particularly with the referral co-branding, you've got the linking in from the group risk as well. I like that, and also the managing of customers' expectations, i.e. it's not going to be a phone call out of nowhere. People can see the pathway, they can see the benefits as why they're doing what they're doing, and it fits in with their lifestyle. And then the flexibility piece as well, with regards to those people, those professional connections that we're referring to you.
Exactly. A lot of it's really centered around sort of treating people as you'd like to be treated yourself. I don't want to be passed from pillar to post, just like I don't want to be called randomly and sold to. And that's really our kind of ethos.
I think it's like anything, is it? You'll do it, won't you?
Mine's so simple, but not everybody's doing it like that.
The businesses love it as well, because the person that does the business protection and the person that does the group risk and goes and understands the business is then the same person that goes on site, delivers it to the employees, and then the journey will be linked to that dedicated manager, so that when the employees come through, they'll then talk to the same advisor who'll help them with their personal protection.
Must have had countless advisor relationships that have been built out of those scenarios where that same person is delivered to, 150 employees or whatever. Exactly. At the back of that, you're going to have so many customers coming in and wanting to be looking at their personal needs.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, there is a commercial angle as well. So by doing the business in the group,
Yeah.
then we bring in the employees as well. But yeah, it's great because that person that you saw in real life, when you then go through the journey and you book a call, it's like, it's still Liam. And then Liam's the one that calls you and you're like, I know Liam. I saw him. He was at the office.
And how many because of that face-to-face connection is so powerful, as we know. How many customers that you have obtained that way, looking at their personal protection needs, how many of those customers didn't have advisors before? If you know what I mean, do you get many, or is that something you could?
I think it's a mixture. I think it depends in which kind of markets. There are plenty of people that we help with that have a lot of. So let me start that again a little bit. So we're the whole of the market. So we have kind of 19 insurers on panel, 7 private medical insurers. So the idea being is that if there's a solution, I want to be able to find it for customers. So we do talk to lots of people that have tried and failed, and they've almost got to a point where they don't even want to try again. And that's normally due to medical conditions and underwriting. Hopefully we can find them a solution because we've got that breadth, but also we'll help them understand why and what it means and so on and so forth. I think so that definitely in the medical, in some of the more sort of riskier professions, which are basically kind of manual labour. We do a lot of work there where they are normally saying, I haven't bothered with this normally because I just know
I don't think I
can't get it. So there is that. But then lots of other, referrals are, I've got something, I want you to have a look. And we do a free review service, which is a little bit sort of saying that we'd love to be able to say to you, what you've got is great. Keep that. And we do say that an awful lot. If there's anything that we would advise or recommend, which might just be as simple as putting it in trust, but also we will do a whole market review, and quite often we give them kind of better cover at the same price or maybe cheaper, or maybe they realise they actually want more and they understand how they're spending their money.
Have you tried the new and improved Ignite? 4 tools, 1 platform, 0 stress. Ignite combines the power of 4 tools. Criteria, affordability, product and property in one easy-to-use platform, giving you everything you need to research and compare for the best mortgage options. Ignite's data is updated directly by lenders in real time, so you can stay ahead with confidence in a fast-moving market. To see the power of 4 in action, click the link below to book a demo.
You've obviously, throughout the journey encountered loads of different customers. You're bound to have a hero moment, or that moment you went, I'm so glad that happened. That's lovely. That makes everything worthwhile, all the hard work and the effort you put into business. You got anything?
Yes, there are. I think probably one of the hero moments was when we encountered our first claim, which I'm sure is probably the same for lots of people. So, you have the business for a number of years. You haven't encountered a claim yet. But we had a claim quite early on, actually, in as an advised business. And it was actually a referral. It was a review. And they had lots of cover already. We did a lot of work with them, understood a lot of their own circumstances. It was not a difficult customer, but it was quite an intricate, complex case. And actually our advice meant that we changed some of their policies over to what we would recommend. So what they were spending, I don't think broadly changed, but we were just far more, we offered a much better explanation and a much better recommendation, which they were really comfortable with. And actually they made a claim on it 2 months later and had a full payout. And if they didn't have the cover that we'd provided, that wouldn't have paid out against. And that's all around critical illness and the number of conditions covered.
And, and that's so important that, a lot of advisors will make that sale once and then they don't revisit the client. You constantly need to review, and it doesn't always mean changing. It could be upselling or, taking something extra, or then, as providers, we're bringing out new policies, new conditions, with a lot more, conditions on it. So it is worthwhile reviewing everybody. So that's a lovely story.
It is,
yeah.
And that is that real hero moment, because then right, we've done the right thing. This is what we're here for.
Exactly.
And you could have looked at that file and thought, oh God, if we had changed it, it could have went the other way.
Well, we try and talk. So we look after a client for their whole lifetime, because in my view, what you're doing in your 30s versus 40s, 50s, 60s is literally circumstances changing, and you would want your protection to reflect those risks at the time, which might mean increasing, and it also might mean decreasing as you go further down. So we proactively say, look, you can always go to the insurers by all means, but our advice is to start with us. We can go straight into the insurers. We can look at it first. We can talk to them in a certain way. We can take it off your hands. So actually that customer came to us to say, this has happened, what do you think? And we were straight on that, took it to the insurer ourselves and looked to push the claim through.
Very good.
So powerful that you've got that involvement in it and helping get to that right outcome from a financial perspective. And it must really help with the, like I said, the professional connections that we said earlier, and keeping that relationship, because we know a lot of wealth planners and all types of advisors, mortgage and protection, all of that, are proud of what they do for their clients. They often know them very personally, don't they? See them in their localities and stuff. So that consistent approach that you have is hugely important, isn't it? And particularly in that scenario.
It really is, yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Have you any top tips for advisors, like new advisors coming into the industry?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that I've learned, and I've definitely really pushed. So our advisors are qualified. They've worked in the industry for a number of years, which means they know what they're doing. When they've come into us, they've had to really sort of take stock on what they do and how they do it, and then how to do it the Cover Direct way. I think any good advisor, if you give them unlimited amount of time, will get there in the end in terms of their advice and learning about you. But when you're under quite a lot of pressure in terms of, clients in the day and, getting through, helping as many people as you can, or however you want to look at it, I think any advisor can look at, what am I really trying to understand and what's the customer really thinking? Because if it does take you an hour and a half, that customer's really got quite bored in that time. It doesn't matter how engaged they are. There's a lot of sound of the own advisor voice, a lot of sort of taking them around the houses to understand. I think a structure to, ask questions to understand their circumstances, an opportunity to introduce key terms or key protection items. And then the way we do it is we risk rank it. So we look to say, what is actually most important to you? And often that might start with, it's life insurance, and then it moves to income protection, and then, but what about critical illness? And then when they understand it all, they start to rank it down. Yeah. And then we present a quote as an all-in-one. So there's no point saying, this one's £10 and this one's £25 and this one's £33, and expecting them to understand it, because also they will default to, can you send me that in an email? Or very inefficient, and it's just sort of delaying. Whereas whilst that's known, we look at it all and say, right, this is what it will do to cover. How does that sit? Is that affordable? Is that suitable? And if they don't like it, we have some recommendations for them. Critical illness is very expensive. So we'll look at, what are you looking to try and achieve with this? You've asked for 1 year's salary critical illness cover. That's a lot of cover that's very expensive. But we can then make recommendations that they understand, and then they can tweak it.
Yeah. You're bringing them along. They're involved, aren't they? I like the way you're ranking the risk. So therefore they're engaged and they're doing it. And of course, when you then look at some of the solution or the overall solution for that, you can then help them tweak it if they need to. Like you say, with the scenario with critical illness there.
And they're making that decision.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they've got all the facts, and then they prioritise.
And I think, so back to that advice for an advisor, reflecting on what you need to get and what the customer might be thinking, and how to do that really succinctly in a nice, orderly fashion, which gets you there in good time without kind of disengagement, being bored, customers starting to do something else on the phone, but also getting that advice and that recommendation across. It also gives you really good opportunity to get the customer to no longer think of it as a monthly direct debit that's just leaving the account. It's actually, this is what it's worth. So if this was to happen, this would be done. Because then they're thinking about, how do I feel about that happening? What would happen?
Yeah. It's like in the old days when you used to write on the policy documents, this is, if anything happens to me, this is the box that you need, So it's understanding the direct debit completely, or the documents, this is the, paying the bills, basically.
Fantastic. Definitely an art to it. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I think we've probably come to, I always say this, favourite time, favourite part of the podcast, if not the episode, is where we ask you a question, Ed.
Okay.
And so, let me ask you it now. So what's a cultural change you made that had a bigger impact than expected?
I think it would have to be the transparency that I operate with. So right across Cover Direct, we're not huge, so there's no visions of this enormous company, but across all the staff, all the employees, I'm completely transparent. What I'm thinking, what I'm sort of feeling, the way I think, explaining why. So whether it's looking at performance metrics, whether it's looking at customers, new referrals, they will know about it all the time, because it's sort of bringing them on our journey. And I think that, it was a good thing to do, and I'm really glad I did, because everyone really understands their business, that they're bought into it, and they want to do, the best they can for it.
Brilliant. We're a bit like that. Yeah, it's that psychological safety as well for the staff. If they know what your strategy is and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, they can buy into it and help, because it's one big team then, isn't it?
On
Love
the
it.
journey together, aren't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. And
journey
everybody's making
together.
a difference, no matter what job you are, what role you have in the business.
Exactly. And why shelter things from people, or not let them, you start to treat yourself like you're in an ivory tower or anything like that?
Yeah.
It's quite a lonely place for a start,
Yeah.
but also, you're sharing it. They feel really involved rather than it's more than just a job, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I get it, some probably get caught up in it and they're so busy and they sort of don't realise or forget, if you like, but it's taking a step back and thinking, like, consciously bringing people along and making sure they're informed, isn't it?
Exactly.
Well, so I think you might have a question.
I do.
For
Well,
our
you.
next guest, is
Yes,
that right?
I prepared my question.
Oh,
My question
fantastic.
was going to be, what's one misconception that you think clients have about protection that you wish you could fix overnight?
Oh, that is
Fantastic
a
one,
good
isn't
one.
it? I'm loving that.
Are you allowed to answer? Love it.
Excellent. Thank you for that amazing question. Thank you also for being so candid and showing, giving us the insights to the journey of Cover Direct, what you do, how you do it, and the great sort of team ethos that you've got and the way you approach things. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, Ed.
No,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much.
both. Yeah, thank you.